I think it's sort of serendipitous. It's been hard for me to come back to the flame for some reason. And I'm really glad to be here, finally, after a long hiatus. Yeah, that's Daddy. You want to go, Daddy? Okay. So I thought it was really serendipitous because the first time that I told a story at the Flame was at the very first one. It was at the end. I got to do open mic. And I told about my 5th day in Japan when I fell down in a bicycle accident and I broke my jaw. And I ended up with my jaw wired shut for 3 weeks, speaking no Japanese and doing a homestay. And it was just a crazy, wonderful adventure, right? Because I was in this foreign country and, you know, why the hell not? So, fast forward several months and I go back to the United States where I'm from. And I was going to bring in the new millennium, year 2000.
Wow.
Yeah. And the schedule was that my mother and I and my brother and his wife, we were going to go to a party at the house of the CEO of the company that he was working for at the time. And they were doing renovations, so it was just this big open, I mean, huge open space. It hadn't been furnished, it hadn't even really been completely built. But it had a roof and 4 walls, and there was a band set up. And people were dancing, and there was a keg, and it was actually my first time being in the United States as a legal adult as well. So I was having one of my first few legal drinks in the United States. And anyway, the band was playing, and everybody was dancing, and it was just a great night. And my mom said, you know, I'm tired and I want to go home. And I said, okay. And my mom, she just recently celebrated a birthday. And by celebrated, I mean she had a birthday. She's got multiple sclerosis and has been bedridden for almost a decade. And she's nonverbal. She's got a feeding tube. It's pretty awful if you know anything about multiple sclerosis or a disease that's like that. But she's still here. I talk about her in the past because there's no conversation anymore. But she is alive, and so we, of course, celebrated her birthday. And I did it by posting on Facebook just a tribute because she's far away, and so for me it's nice now that I'm a mother to mention the things that she taught me. And then I hope that I'll teach my daughter. And I just said, May 27th, many moons ago, my mother was born, and thank goodness for it. She was the sunshine that lit up a room with her smile. She taught me how to do such practical things, like get on a plane a day early by pretending you had mixed up the dates. Katie, watch and play along, she would say. And I always did. And it always worked. Like without fail, it always worked. And now I call it politeness with a hint of distance. And she would say, you know, people like to help you when you really seem to need it. And when you're nice, it's a pleasure for everyone. And so it's true. And I'm glad I could learn that from the best. So I said, you know, happy birthday. And that niceness has come to help me in many, many moments in my life. And so when I heard that the theme tonight was women, of course the first woman I thought of was my mother. But I also started thinking about sort of my experience on this earth as a woman and all the amazing things and all of the peculiar things that can happen to you as a woman. And so my mother goes home from this New Year's party, and I stay, and we're still dancing and having a great time, and suddenly, and I'm changing names here, this guy Dewey comes up. And Dewey worked for the company, and in fact he was a relative of the CEO. And he comes up and we're dancing, and I'm dancing with this person, everybody's dancing. And the music ends, and everyone's like, yeah, woo, you know, it was a really good jam. And then the lights kind of come back up, and I start to walk away, and he like grabs my arm, and I'm like, happy New Year, Dewey, and he's like, if you don't come home with me, your brother is not getting the training program that he's working on. What is happening right now? Like, you know, people say when they get mugged or whatever, like you don't know what you're going to do if you're in that situation. And it's so true, because you just really, like, first you're like waiting for your brain to catch up with the situation. And then finally it like gets there, and then you're like, oh, I have to formulate words to respond to this. And so I just looked at him and I said, Dewey, I wish you the happiest New Year ever. I hope you and your family have a great millennium. But my mother is waiting for me, and I have to go home. And he's like, your brother's not going to get his training program. And what do? I start apologizing. I'm like, I'm sorry for that, but I really hope that you can find it in your heart. And I'm laughing. This is just ridiculous. Like, I'm apologizing for you sexually harassing me. I hope you find it in your heart to let my brother have his training program, because my mother is waiting up for me, and I have to go home now. And then I'm like backing up, going like, who's gonna have the best New Year? You are! Like, drunk girl at a party, I don't know, just like, this is insane, and why is this happening? And I saw him like years later, and I went home, and my mother, my nice, wonderful mother, had candles lit all over the living room. She was waiting for me to come home. Oh. And I walk in, and she's like, so how was the rest of the party? And I was like, Mom, I think I was sexually harassed. And she was like, what happened? And I sat down, I told her, and we tell my brother, and come to find out, like, this is not the first time that this guy has done this, of course. But, you know, what do? You can't really call the cops and tell them about it. And my brother works for the company, but I'm not an employee. So it's a weird case. What do? You tell people about it, and you process your experience, and you let your brother go in like the big honking beast that he is, and put his hands on the desk and say, what did you say to my sister? And you just hope that, like, at some point this guy might wake up. But I saw him years later. He wouldn't make eye contact with me, which was fine. I, of course, was like, and walked into the birthday party very confident, sat down right in the middle of, you know, the big entourage, and had a nice time. And the last thing, well, I guess the second to last thing that I heard about Dewey is that he was passed out drunk on the second floor of the house, where on the first floor his son was murdering his son's girlfriend. So, I just want to say, I really thank my mother for teaching me to be nice. Thank you.